The One More ComfoBuds 2 are the second iteration from the manufacturer, and here they offer a slightly increased battery life and a few additional features which we'll cover throughout this review. Now they can be found for around £60 in the UK and around $60 in the US, and therefore at the time of filming are roughly £20 or $20 more expensive than their predecessors. Now jumping straight in, we're going to talk about Bluetooth codecs, and of course they are wireless earphones after all. They connect over to your smartphone via the AAC and SBC codecs. The AAC one is the better out of the two and will often be the default. Unless you have an older Android device, it'll run on the SBC codec. It's a shame not to see the aptX or let's say more advanced codecs, but given the price point, it's perfectly acceptable. Now in terms of its sound quality, it's worth bearing in mind that these earphones are on ear, therefore they don't go in your ear and as a result won't give you the same sort of sub-bass response, and indeed here the sub-bass extension is somewhat cut short. Despite them housing 13.4mm dynamic drivers, I just felt that the sub-bass response was just not as pronounced as some other in-ear true wireless earphones that are on the market, be it at its price point or even a little bit cheaper, for example from One More themselves where they offer the One More piston buds. However, when it comes to its mid-bass response, I was actually pleasantly surprised, namely in terms of the overall control that the earphones were able to portray. These earphones are actually a lot better than other alternatives that I've tried, including the Apple AirPods. In this domain, the earphones do produce a pretty hearty low-end response and will definitely keep you excited, be it if you're listening to R&B or D&B music to let's say even classical music. Now moving on to the mids, the ComfoBuds 2 do produce a slightly recessed and pushed back sound, but nevertheless when you do compare it to other earphones at its price category, including the One More piston buds or let's say the Creative Outlier Air, what you'll find is the ComfoBuds 2 actually do a pretty good job. Here, in terms of the overall sound, in comparison to their predecessors as well, it's pretty much near on identical. Now the same could be said about its highs, where there's a little bit of an extension at top end, but it does sound a little bit rolled off, so the highs aren't as zingy as some might want, but equally they're not harsh or sibilant in the slightest, and therefore means that you can enjoy your music at all different volumes without having to take the earphones out of your ears. And finally, to round off the sound quality section, I do have to talk about the soundstage. Now due to their design, and even though they have dynamic drivers that are housed inside, it is worth bearing in mind that the overall soundstage is a little bit closed. Therefore, the width and depth just doesn't come across as wide as some people might like. Specifically here, if you compare them to the Creative Outlier Air, it's almost no match, although that said, a lot could be said against the Creative Outlier Air in this department because they're somewhat class leading specifically for their price. Nevertheless, the instrument separation of the ComfoBuds 2 is seriously impressive. I was actually really left impressed by how the instruments were being separated and the overall tonality and imaging was coming across. In other words, it was pinpoint accurate. So truthfully, and to round off the overall sound quality, I will say that it is actually really impressive as to what One More has achieved at this price point, and yet again, very much like their predecessors, they're pretty much near identical in terms of the overall sound signature. So if you like their predecessors, you'll certainly like the ComfoBuds too. Now moving on, we get onto recording quality, and everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the earphones. Now what I will say subjectively is that the earphones do a decent job of portraying my voice, and while it does sound a little bit pushed back in terms of the mid-range, in other words the vocals, it is still perfectly acceptable, specifically for earphones of its price tag. Now just for comparison, here are the Creative Outlier Air V1, and it will just give you an indication of how similarly priced earphones compare to the One More earbuds. Now moving on, there's a few other features I do want to talk about. Now first off, both the left and right drivers can be used independently from each other, so therefore you can use them in a mono format, and it's great to see in that sort of configuration. And elsewhere you do have an equalizer function that can be accessed through the app. Now I didn't reference this through my sound quality section because it's not something I actually use. I actually leave it on the default section. But if you do want the preset equalizers, you can use them, but it's a shame to see that One More hasn't included a custom equalizer functionality, so therefore allowing you to tailor the earphones to your own liking. Now moving on, you have got the smart playback, and therefore allows you to auto pause the earphones when they come out of your ears, and indeed vice versa when they're in your ears. And then you've got the custom setting, which allows you to customize the touch functions, and here it's just slightly a shame to see, very much like other One More products, that let's say for example if you wanted to double tap play and pause on your left and then double tap and go on next track, you can't do so because it's done per row, so it's just worth bearing that in mind. But it's good to see that you've got both double tap and triple tap functions at your disposal. Then you've got gaming mode, which effectively reduces the latency. I had no problems when it comes to latency with the earphones. They run on Bluetooth 5.2, which is a slight improvement over their predecessors, but nevertheless, even without gaming mode. I had no problems when it comes to hearing back movies or indeed looking at certain games. Now you can have an OTA firmware update as well over here, and then other than that you can enable some soothing sounds if you so wish. So now we get onto the comfort and the design of the earphones. Now I will say subjectively I'm not a big fan of on-ear earphones. Very much like the AirPods, I just feel that they just sit a bit too loosely and are somewhat prone to falling out. Specifically if you're having some workouts, then they might potentially fall out of your ears. But this is quite subjective because everyone's ear canals are different, and it's very much the same thing that I said about its predecessors. Here I just don't see myself using these and being comfortable, ironically, while using the ComfoBuds 2. But likewise, you might actually be in the market for on-ear earphones because you're not comfortable while using in-ear earphones. And in this domain, well, there's no complaints whatsoever. I also do like the fact that they have a slight silicone insert, which means that it just sits a little bit better in your ear. So if you're doing a little bit of extra workout, or let's say you're walking at pace, then they're not as prone as falling out as earphones such as the on-ear earphones from, let's say, Apple, that do not have the silicone inserts, and therefore means that the plastic, plus with a little bit of sweat, I know that might sound a little bit grimy, will actually potentially fall out a lot sooner than the ones with the ComfoBuds 2. Now elsewhere, when it comes to design, the earphones are available in a black and white finish. They do have a slight glossy feel, specifically in the black variants, and I should also mention that the case, the charging case that is extremely slender, and I absolutely love this because it means it's super portable. In comparison to other cases on the market, I think it's one of the smallest cases that I've ever come across when it comes to a set of true wireless earbuds. Now moving swiftly on, we get onto battery life, and here it's where it's been really improved in terms of the overall earphones, whereby they will last 6 hours on a single charge, up from 4 hours, and with the case they will last for around 24 hours. These are of course One More's claims, and it really depends in terms of the overall volume that you're using them and how often you're interacting with the earphones, but on the whole here it's just great to see that One More has improved this. Furthermore, they accept a fast charge as well, whereby the earbuds can quickly charge in 40 minutes, which means that if you're going to be plugging them in just before leaving, then it just gives you a little bit of an extra kind of headroom to bear in mind that, well, you're not going to have to worry about running out of battery life on your daily commutes. Now on the subject of interaction, the earphones do have touch sensitive pads on either side, and I had no issues whatsoever when it came to registering my inputs. As I did mention in terms of the app function, you can customize these depending on the left and right functions, although it is somewhat limited to say the least. And so this leads me on to my verdict. Will I recommend the ComfoBuds 2? Well, frankly, I should point out that I would not buy on-ear earphones personally. However, I'm very much objective in my reviews, and therefore I do want to say that as for on-ear earphones, they're absolutely spectacular in terms of what they offer in terms of a total package, be it from the sound quality, recording quality, and even the overall functionality and design. Even the case itself is actually quite slender and slim. But it should be worth considering that if you do not need that extra battery life, and if you don't need those EQ profiles that I mentioned in the app function, which you might not actually use, then it's worth considering and saving money and buying the ComfoBuds, the version 1s, over the ComfoBuds 2, because, well, they come in at a cheaper price point and therefore make them all that bit more attractive. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in a comment section below as to what you make of the earphones, and of course if you've got any alternatives that I should review. Alright, I've been Chris, or Totally Dubbed, and I hopefully enjoyed this review, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.